ladies and gentlemen, Mushambi Mutuma.
Thank you so much for that overwhelming introduction. It's always interesting to see how people introduce me, so thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. How are we all doing today? Ah, come on, guys. I said I wouldn't do this as a speaker. We get this rule that we have to say things twice or 3 times. How are we all doing today? There we go. She got the memo. I appreciate it. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you today. I was with the team together in Cape Town on Tuesday, and so I've been surrounded by accountants all week. Unfortunately, none of that knowledge on numbers is rubbing off on me just yet. I'm still struggling in that regard, but that's why we have all of you great people. All right, so today, as mentioned, I speak a lot about tech and entrepreneurship and innovation. I'm really passionate about those 3 things because of the convergence that they have, and that's what we're going to kind of have a conversation today about, because I believe if we unlock these 3 things, we can unlock growth not only in South Africa, but in our continent. And for you as entrepreneurs, as accountants, as managers of your own firms, hopefully we'll be able to do that. So as mentioned, the title of my talk is about leveraging entrepreneurship and technology for your exponential growth. It's a bit of a mouthful, I agree, but hopefully through our conversation today, we'll be able to leverage the tools that I think make a great entrepreneur and a great entrepreneurial thinker. And then what we're going to close off with is how you can use technology to grow your practices and grow your businesses. It's especially important in 2019 to not always understand every aspect of technology, but understand its very nature, how it works, and kind of how to predict it. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Is that all right with you guys? Is that all right with you guys? Yes. Okay, great. So I'm a firm believer that everyone should think and behave like an entrepreneur, whether you are or not, whether you're a director, an employee, a manager. Everyone should think and behave like an entrepreneur. I'm glad they fixed the lights for me because I like looking at people when I'm talking. I like calling on people, so if you make eye contact with me, I will call on you just like we're in class and in school. So I'm going to ask you my first question as an interactive audience that I hope you're going to be. Why do you think I think everyone needs to think and behave like an entrepreneur? What's the value in that? People are looking away. Like, all of a sudden, your phones are interesting. Don't call on me. Innovation. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. You sat right at the front. She's got an answer from the gut. Anybody else? Creative thinking. Yes. Anybody else? Security. All right. Anybody? Collaboration. I love these, right? So I'm going to enhance on some of those characteristics as we go. I think the number one reason all of us should think and behave like entrepreneurs is entrepreneurs, those of you in the room, pat yourselves on the back, are the number one problem solvers in the world, right? Because you have to be. The very nature and the reason you probably created or started your business was to solve a problem, right? Because you saw an opportunity, you saw a gap in the market, and you felt that you could solve it, right? I see some of you taking notes, taking pictures. I don't want it to distract from your participation, so don't worry. If you want my slides after this, I'll give them to you. So don't stress about having to write down anything, okay? We're here together. All right, the number 2 thing I believe is that entrepreneurs are quick, all right? You know, the bigger organizations get, the harder it is for them to pivot and move around. Entrepreneurs are always quick. They're agile. They're resourceful, right? Because they don't have any resources typically. Cash flow is a problem, I'm sure, for a lot of your clients, right? Entrepreneurs, small businesses don't always have enough resources, or they don't get them in time, and people don't pay, especially in South Africa. It's a major issue. So entrepreneurs, those that think like them, have to be very resourceful. They also have to be opportunistic. A lot of people view this word as a negative, and I don't believe so at all. I think being opportunistic is merely looking and finding opportunities. So this is a positive trait. This is a good thing. Somebody mentioned innovation. We'll talk about that as we go on today. The other thing is failure. How many of you guys like failure, like failing? 1. You're my favorite student today, man. All right, 2, 3, and they're not very confident. They're like, right here, yeah, right, yeah, maybe. Okay, we're going to talk about the importance of failure as you grow your business and your practice, because I think it's an amazing tool. I happen to love failure. I eat failure like I eat jelly beans, right? I can't just have one. I have to finish the entire packet. All right, if you work with me, you'll know that I got a nice little candy drawer, and I can't just have one, okay? And that's the same way I view failure. And lastly, I think the people that think and behave like entrepreneurs have no limitations on their business, on the goals they have, on the impact that their businesses can have. So I want to go through a couple things that I believe are key to developing and nurturing the entrepreneurial mindset within each of you today. And the very first thing is that entrepreneurs are rooted in purpose, the most successful ones. It's really easy to maybe come up here and talk about business practices, how to market your business, how to grow your client base, how to minimize costs, increase profits. But I'm not going to talk about any of that today. That's very simple. It's not easy, but it's very simple. But the things that have leveraged the most successful brands and businesses in the world are what we're going to talk about now. And the first thing is purpose. How many Apple fans do we have in the room? Put your hands up proudly. Great. How many Samsung fans do we have? Put your hands back down. No, don't cheer. Don't cheer. There's nothing to be proud of there. All right, so I'm a little bit biased. I won't admit, I won't bash them too much. I'm a little bit biased. Growing up, my dad worked at Apple Computer, all right? So I'm a little bit biased about how I feel about the brand and its impact. I got the pleasure of meeting Steve Jobs when I was 12 years old. I had lunch with him. I cried through most of it, unfortunately. That shows you how nerdy I was as a 12-year-old. All right? But let's talk about Apple and Samsung for a moment. It came out last year that Apple's worth $1 trillion. All right? First company to hit $1 trillion market cap. Incredible. Amazon hit it a few months later, a few weeks later, but they're worth $1 trillion, almost 1.2 today. Samsung, conversely, is worth 368. I think yesterday was about $380 billion. Nice little business, but to me, there's no real competition. Right? You're accountants, right? Numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie. We're not competition if I'm worth $1 trillion, all right? Apple also has $450 billion in cash, right? Not assets, but cash, hard liquid cash. So if they wanted to, they could buy out their competition in cash, all right? Here you go. Here's a briefcase. Take your little business elsewhere, all right? But why do you think that is? Sorry, I want to slide ahead, all right? Why do you think that is? What do you think makes Apple so much more successful than Samsung? What's that rooted in? Yeah? Anybody? I told you not to make eye contact with me, sir. All right? What's Apple doing so right that Samsung isn't? They're focusing on their market? Okay, anybody else? They understand Apple's story. I like it. Yes, sir? Innovation? What does that mean? What's your expectation of Apple when it comes to innovation? What do you mean there? Okay, so you expect that from them. I like that. We had one more hand there. Yes, ma'am? Brand building. I like that. What is the brand? What have they built? I'm always going to ask an extra question, guys. I'm that teacher. Think about it. You'll come back to me. Yes, ma'am. Okay. It's fluid. I like that. The fluid brand, yes. Ease of use. Okay, Steve would be proud of all of you. Thank you. All right? But I think there's something else. There's a principle called the Golden Circle. It's not my theory. It's a man named Simon Sinek. You should download his TED Talk today, an amazing storyteller. And he's got this principle called the Golden Circle. And what the Golden Circle says is that everybody, every brand, every corporation, every individual can tell you with great clarity what they do. Fewer can tell you how they go about that, their differentiator, maybe that's pricing and culture. Very few can tell you why. Right? So my question for you all today is, why did you get out of bed today? Right? To come all the way here to Bryanston, brave morning traffic. Sure, you get a nice little tote bag from Quickbooks and some goodies in the hallway there. But why did you get out of bed today? What's your own purpose as a business? Okay, because most brands, like Samsung, communicate from the outside in. They'll say, what do? We make phones, computers, fridges, watches, microwaves, everything under the sun, right? How? Well, they come in different sizes, different colors, different shapes. This one has this many megapixel camera. This one has this many gigs of storage. Why should you buy one? It's on sale, right? It's a good deal. Apple, conversely, and brands that seek to change the world and get valued at $1 trillion communicate from the inside out. Why do we get out of bed every day? To smash the status quo. Right? How do we do that? Beautifully designed, easy-to-use technology. What do? Oh yeah, we happen to make computers and watches and phones, etc. And it's not just semantics. Your expectation of Apple every time they launch a product is for them to smash the status quo, right? You expect it. You hope that they're going to be crazy innovative, whatever new technology, new phone, new operating system, new computer, it must smash the status quo. If it doesn't, you're disappointed, right? So that's the expectation that we all have. What Simon also says is that people don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. So none of your customers today care that you're a great accountant. Sorry to break it to you. Even if you've been in business 22 years, they don't care that you're a great accountant, right? They don't care that you're the best number cruncher, the best bookkeeper, right? Those things are replaceable, right? There's how many of you, 200, 300 people in the room. If I wanted to find another great accountant, I'd move down the list, and you're all here, right? If that's your only differentiator, you can quickly get replaced. People buy why you do things, right? Why you do it. And that's what I want to expand on today. So very quickly, this is also proven, because some of you are looking at me a little bit skeptical. The greatest entrepreneurs in the world also build their own businesses around purpose. Richard Branson, what do you think his purpose is behind all of the Virgin brands that he has? Anybody? Anybody? Fun, I like that. Yes, ma'am, you're going to say the same thing? Yeah, Richard does have a little bit of fun with his businesses. He's known to do that. But I think it's something a little bit deeper, giving the average Joe a world-class experience. When he first launched Virgin Atlantic, he was competing against British Airways. He thought that it was too elitist, too expensive for the common British citizen to be able to travel and see the world. So he thought, how can I create a sleek, sexy, fun brand that's affordable for people? And he's run that across all of his brands, whether it be his record label, whether it be his banking services. He says, how can we give average Joes a world-class experience? Even with Virgin Galactic, when he's trying to take people to space, to the moon for the weekend, he's hoping that eventually that'll be quite affordable for the average man. Right now, you need about $100,000, $200,000 to do so, so maybe some of you CAs in the room can help us get there. All right, Oprah. What do you think Oprah's purpose is? Why do we people love Oprah so much and trust her so much? Yes, ma'am. I see you mouthing it, and you made eye contact. What do you think? Free stuff under the chair. I like that. So I want everyone to look under your chair real quick. Everybody? No, look under your chair. There's nothing. I didn't give you anything. Sorry. You got your tote bags. I'm sorry. But you get a chair. You get a, right? I like that, but maybe a little bit deeper. Yes, ma'am? Yes. I like that. Yeah, so it's very personal, all right? You trust Oprah. She feels like your mother, your aunt, right? Your sister. Yeah. Her brands, all of them, from her shows to her magazine to her investment in Weight Watchers, is all about being of service, all right? Mark Zuckerberg, easy one, real quick. What's Mark's why? To connect everyone, right? WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, his sole goal is to connect everyone. Not just to sell secrets to the Russians, right? But for bigger causes than that, right? Because Mark believes that once we connect everyone, we can battle things like education, access to information, even infectious disease can be prevented once all of us are connected with one another. So, your purpose, the why behind your brand, is the articulation of what makes you, you. So I want you, as you go away from here today and thinking about 2019, stop selling the what and how behind your business. Nobody cares. What really matters to them is why you do it. What's the real value in being an accountant in 2019? If you can sell that, you'll never lose a customer. All right. Number 2, grit. It's one of my favorite words. I'm going to speed on a little bit here. Grit has a couple definitions that I love. Persistence and perseverance despite fear and unknown. A determined appreciation of every step of the journey, an unwavering commitment to your goals, the consistency of actions resulting from deliberate volition work, right? It's a lot of English here, but one of my favorite definitions of grit is your capacity to dig deep, to do whatever it takes to suffer, sacrifice, struggle, and stumble in order to achieve your most worthy goals. How many of you feel gritty as individuals? Yeah, my favorite student, she's gritty. Yeah, I like you guys. Okay, so the rest of you, hopefully we can get you to be a little bit more gritty. My father said this every day growing up, especially after I had a loss at a basketball game or some sports game. He would say you have to have some of that hanging in there-ness, right? So grit is solely your ability to hang in there, to never give up. 22 years later as an accountant, right? I'm sure you had to have some grit in lasting that long in this industry. But grit is also proven scientifically, because some of you are looking at me like you don't trust me just yet. So Angela Duckworth is a professor at University of Pennsylvania. She studied grit, hard work, and hanging in there-ness for 25 years, right? That's all she studied. PhDs, academics, right? Very focused people. And she's found out that grit is a great predictor for success, one of the greatest predictors for success. Typically, when we think about success, we think about these things. Grades, how well did you do at school, right? What were your marks? Your social intelligence, how well you're good at hanging out with people in settings like this, networking, leveraging off of them. Your family income, how smart, how well off your parents were or weren't is a great predictor for success. Good looks, right? Hopefully, right? What do you guys know? My wife thinks I'm handsome, all right? Your physical health, how strong you are, how weak you are, right? Your IQ. All of these things are great predictors for success, but your grittiness is the greatest predictor of all. She studied Fortune 500 CEOs, students, military veterans, CEOs, sales teams, everyone across the board for 25 years, and has proven that how gritty you are is an amazing achiever for success. And the best part about grit is that grit is actually a muscle. Right? So those of you, most of you didn't raise your hands when I asked you, do you feel gritty? You can actually develop and enhance grit within you. It's something that can be trained. It's something that can be improved. So the second key to entrepreneurial mindset thinking and shifting is just grit. If you want to be successful, all you have to do, like my father said, is hang in there. Are you with me? Are you with me? Yeah. All right, great. Now let's talk about failure, all right? None of you, or just very few of you, raised your hands, put your hands down here when I talked about failure. Why is failure so bad? Right? Hey? It's not. I love that answer. Anybody else? But why do we typically not feel comfortable with failing? Makes you feel like a loser. That's spot on, right? It's horrible. It makes you feel weak. It makes you feel stupid, right? But failure is actually an amazing opportunity. Failure is only failure if you stay down, right? You're only a loser if you accept that I'm a loser. But one of my favorite minds and one of the greatest minds in history, Leonardo da Vinci, is one of the greatest minds ever. He's a polymath, right? He excelled at everything, whether it was math, science, art, sculpting. He was a geologist, a nutritionist. He literally learned everything. And we could put all of our minds together and probably still not rival the mind of Da Vinci. And Da Vinci had one word that he said led to all of his great success. Okay. How many Italians in the room? Any Italians? One. Okay. All right. Anybody else been to Italy? A couple more? Any of you fallen in love with an Italian? Right? No? Okay. My hand's up. Don't tell my wife. All right? Anybody eaten Italian food? There we are. All right? All of you have, trust me. Pizza, spaghetti, you've all done it. All right? So I'm going to teach you a little Italian, and our resident Italian in the room can tell me if I'm correct. All right? And that's the one word that Da Vinci believed in. So I want you to all put your hands out like this, because when we speak Italian, you have to speak with, yeah, she's with me, yeah. Everybody, come on, put your phones down, your pens down. Everybody with me. Come on, ma'am. Come on. Yeah, it's okay. Dimostrazione. Dimostrazione. Yes. Allora, right? Are you with me? Yeah. Italians, they speak with their hands, right? Mamma mia, pizza, everything is right here. Okay. Yeah, I love it. She said, ask an Italian to put his hands in his pocket and speak to you. It doesn't work. I love it. It's very true. I spent some time there, so I do know. Okay, So, what do we think that means? We're all Italians now. Demonstrate, right? It's an easy one, but I love the definitions. Dimostrazione, a commitment to test knowledge through experience and failure. A willingness to learn from your mistakes, learning through constant application and experimentation. So the greatest mind, arguably in history, said the key to his success was constant failure and experimentation. Right? When was the last time any of us experimented in our businesses? Right? As accountants, you've been taught very specific laws of accounting, laws of business, lots of rules, right? And I'm not saying break the law, but when was the last time you tried something brand new in servicing your clients and trying to grow your brand? When was the last time? Have you? Typically, we just implement what we did last year, right? We change it a little bit, we refine it, we'll improve incrementally, right? And that's all we do. But when was the last time you threw all your ideas away and said, let me completely start from scratch? Let me try something new. The most successful businesses, the most successful entrepreneurs practice dimostrazione, right? They practice the art of experimentation. So I'd like to leave you guys with that today. So where are we right now? We got purpose, we got grit, we got failure. Are we together? Are we still together? Are we feeling good? Cool, what's next? How many of you guys play the game of chess? All right, it's a few of you. So I've got a story about the history of chess. Excuse me for a moment. There was a young king who loved the game of chess, right? And he looked in his entire kingdom looking for someone who could beat him at the game of chess. Over and over and over, and no one could do so. Finally, one day, a young farmer, after hours and hours, beat the king. And the king looked at him and said, young man, you can have anything you wish for in my kingdom, whether it be gold, a castle, one of my sons, one of my daughters, whatever you want, you can have, right? And the farmer thought for a moment and said, I'll take a grain of wheat, but I want you to double the grains of wheat every square on the chessboard. How many squares are on a chessboard? 64. So he said, you'll give me 1, and then 2, and then 4. And the king laughed and said, are you sure? Is that all you want? And the farmer confidently said, yes. How many of you today think that was a good investment? Not all of you, all right? Not all of you. Some of you said very, right? The reason why most of you didn't is because we are linear thinkers as human beings, especially accountants. You crunch numbers, you look at numbers. It's easy to be linear. 1 + 1 = 2, and so forth, right? So it's very easy to be linear because when we think linearly, it's easy to predict. We predict where we're going based on where we've been, right? If I told you to build a house, you'll say maybe it takes 9 months to a year to build a house, so that's how long it'll take me. If you told me to build 10 houses, it'll take 10 years perhaps, right? Or if I told you to take a step and take 30 steps and ask you where you'd end up, well, you'd say, it takes me about a meter every step I take, so to go 30 steps, I would end up 30 meters. You'd look back, you'd be able to count 30 meters, right? We're linear. It's very easy. But exponential thinking is where the greatest entrepreneurial minds push themselves, just like that young farmer. So exponential steps, right? So if 30 linear steps is 30 meters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 30, what's 30 exponential steps? 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 10 million is the answer on the 30th step. It's a little bit more than that. Anybody else? 30th step, where do you end up? It's more than 10 million? What do you think? I trust you with my money. Come on, guys. I can see someone doing some numbers real quick. Yeah? It's a lot, right? How many of you would think that it's 1,073,716,824 meters? Anybody had that in mind? Okay. I didn't, certainly. Right? The first time I looked at this, that's 26 times around the planet. Right? From 30 meters to 1 billion, just with the way of shifting. So let's go back math-wise to our farmer very quickly. Our farmer on the 64th square, how many pieces in grains of wheat did he have? Trillions, a little bit more. All right? It's 15 quintillion pieces of grain. All right? It's 330 metric tons, valued at $300 trillion. Right? So 300 Apple computers, right? It's quite amazing, right? But none of us thought so, because we think incrementally, we think linearly. So let's bring it back home a little bit, maybe help you think. If I told you to market your businesses or to teach 100 people, how would you do so? Yes? You teach people to teach people, right? Maybe you'd open WhatsApp, you do one of those broadcast messages that we hate, right? You can easily reach 100 people, 1,000 people. Maybe you'd have to open your Facebook and see if you can send a message to everyone there. But what if I told you to impact 1 billion people, teach 1 billion people? Do you have a strategy in mind for how you could do that? Likely not, right? That's what exponential thinking requires, a completely new way of thinking, right? If you're going to grow your business exponentially, grow your brand exponentially, grow your thinking exponentially, you're going to have to throw away everything else you've ever thought of before, because it's likely all linear. Okay. So let's talk about technology as we close out this presentation, because technology is super important. That's why we're all here. We're here under the guise of Quickbooks. They put on this conversation. Technology is a valuable part of your business. But what I'd argue is most of us don't really understand technology. All right? I'm a tech entrepreneur myself. I run a digital lab that builds technology, mobile applications, banking applications, and the like. And I could argue very well that I don't even understand technology. You mentioned I'm writing a book on it. It's very difficult to write a book on technology in 2019, right? Because it's constantly changing. As soon as I open the news every day, I'm like, oh, there goes 4 pages, a whole chapter. It's incredibly frustrating. Hopefully my editor doesn't hold it against me. But I think the most successful entrepreneurial minds and thinkers in the world grow tech adjacent. All right, so what do I mean by that? How many of you guys understand these things? Right? Innovation, big data, the Internet of Things, data mining, augmented reality, virtual reality, automation. Do we understand any of these things? The fourth industrial revolution, blockchain. How many of you can confidently get on stage and explain any of these concepts? I'm going to put my hand down. All right? How many of you, to take it a step further, know how to implement these in your businesses? She just laughs, right? Because that's how technology is. All these buzzwords are super overwhelming. They're super exhausting. And I don't think anyone can make sense of all of them on a regular basis. Every time you open your computer, open Twitter, the news every day, there's more buzzwords. There's more things you need to try to figure out and learn. But I'm a strong believer that you don't need to care about all the buzzwords. So leave them behind for a moment. If you want to grow your business, and grow along with tech, you have to be tech adjacent. So what's the definition? I love definitions if you didn't know that already, right? Definition, not distant or nearby. I love this, having a common endpoint or border or goal, immediately preceding or following, within close proximity, adjoining, juxtaposed, neighboring, verged, linked. For you to be successful this year and beyond, you have to be adjoining, have a close proximity to technology. You don't have to understand all the bells and whistles, but you need to be closely aligned. So what does that mean? It means we need to understand the very nature of technology and how it works. The very first thing that technology is hereditary. What do I mean here? That every piece of technology that you interact with right now was preceded by something else. Sometimes we think that technology is just going to drop from the heavens or from aliens. It's going to be some brand new thing that we've never seen or heard of before. That's very likely ever going to happen. Every megabyte, every pixel, every motherboard, every chip in the computer, in the phone that you have in your pocket or purse right now was developed by something before it, right? So if you want to predict where technology is going, you just have to understand that it's going to come from where it is right now. It's not going to be something drastically different that you're never going to be able to understand. It's just going to be a little bit better, faster, and improved. The other thing is technology is social, right? A lot of accountants in particular are scared of being replaced by AI and technology, right? I'm sure some of you have had those conversations. But technology's very nature is not to replace you. It's simply a tool human beings use to make things better, easier, and faster. That's all technology is a tool that we use. So technology will never replace you because it's always a tool that human beings use. And human beings will always need technology from the apps we use on a daily basis today, all the way back to the beginning of time when we created the first tools out of stone and wood and rock. Okay. The other thing is technology is exponential. Dominique mentioned Moore's Law earlier, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with Moore's Law, but very quickly, Moore's Law says that every 18 to 24 months or thereabouts, technology's capacity doubles. What does that mean? The phone in your pocket right now, every 18 to 24 months, when it's time to get a new contract upgrade, your phone will double in capacity, right? It'll go from 256 gigs to 512. It'll double in speed and processing power. Very likely the phones you have in your pocket right now, especially if they're Apple, they're probably faster than the laptops that you own, right? They've got more processing power, and you just use it for Facebook and Instagram, right? And they're also half in cost. Maybe not for you at Vodacom, but definitely as a shareholder of Apple, right? They're half in cost to manufacture and create them. That's how technology moves, exponentially. Every 18 to 24 months, you're going to know, all you got to know is that it's going to double. If that's all you learn today, is know that it's going to double. And it's that simple. The other thing is technology is not about code. It's just not about apps. It's not about fancy things. We always think of high tech and hyper-tech when we think about technology. But again, it's making things easier, faster, and better. Let's talk about innovation for a moment. How do we understand and make heads or tails of innovation? Well, firstly, innovation is how we change the world, right? It's about creating value. Innovation is not just smashing the status quo just to smash the status quo. It's about doing something that's going to create value and add wealth in multiple arenas. It's the very implementation, of making things easier, better, and different. So what isn't innovation? We talked about buzzwords earlier. Innovation is not just a buzzword. It's very difficult to say I'm innovative and actually be innovative. We spoke, it's not just technology. And it's not just replication. This really irks me sometimes, especially here. We like to bring in technology from other places and then call it the Uber of, right? The Airbnb of, the Facebook of, and we put a proudly South African sticker on it. Innovation is not replication, right? It has to be contextual. So innovation in South Africa, innovation for your businesses definitely has to be a South African solution for a South African problem. It's also not being first. Apple wasn't the first in doing many of the things that it did, right? Wasn't the first with the smartphone, wasn't the first to condense MP3 files into an MP3 player. They were first to package that in a very nice way and give you a nice marketing slogan like 1,000 songs in your pocket, right, with the first iPod. But they weren't the first. They just took all that together and packaged it well. Also, innovation is not outsourced, right? A lot of companies that I advise, they have innovation departments. They'll take some millennials or people across a couple different departments, put them in the basement with a whiteboard and some sticky notes and say, innovate, right? It's not going to work. Innovation has to be top down and bottom up. It's also not fail-proof. The very act of innovating is about experimentation. Okay. So what's the difference between innovation, experimentation, or invention, and maybe something like disruption? Well, innovation is taking the same thing and improving it, making it a bit better. Invention we don't do enough of, but that's making brand new things. Disruption is taking what exists right now and making that completely obsolete. All right? That's why it's so scary, because it makes all of our jobs, all of our current positions completely obsolete. I love this quote about disruption. Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. All right? The firm reality about business today, about disruption, unfortunately, is that we're all going to get punched in the face. Mike Tyson is coming. Not physically, I'm sorry, that's not going to happen to you, not to give you a violent picture, but in terms of business, disruption's coming. No matter how many plans, how many seminars, how many activities like this we have, disruption is coming, and it's going to knock us on our butts. How do we get back up? This is how we don't get back up. I hear these things when I know disruption is coming. Our business model has been the same for 5, 10, 20 years, right? We price the same way. We've been doing things the same way. It works. Disruption's coming for you. We're just old school, Mushambi. We don't understand some of that. We've been around 22 years. You know, we do things our own way. We just don't understand digital. What does the Facebook even mean, right? I don't get it. We don't understand. I don't know how to use it. Well, we don't like millennials. I hear that a lot, right? Well, they probably don't like you either. But we can still learn from one another. And the number one way I know you will get disrupted is if you say what we've always done is. All right, we had a client a few weeks ago, and they repeated it 3 times in our conversation. At the end of our meeting, I had to respectfully decline their services or to give them our services because the fact that they kept repeating that they've done things the same way, what we've always done, showed how closed-minded they were and how open they are to disruption, right? If you don't prepare to shift, it's certainly coming for you. A lot of times when we talk about disruption, we also push it further. We push it to Silicon Valley, to Tel Aviv, to the West. But I'd argue that right now, today in South Africa, we're experiencing one of our most disruptive periods. It's happening right now. If you think about rain and data must fall, rain is literally trying to activate data must fall today, right? They're reducing drastically and exponentially the cost of mobile data. Big companies, big telcos cannot keep up with that. Vodacom today could not reduce the price of data if it wanted to, right? Their business model, their structures, their employees, their infrastructure, right, does not allow for them to downsize any further, even if they wanted to, right? Bank Zero, right, and great bank being funded by Michael Jordan, has 0 bank fees, right? 0 bank fees, 0 tellers, 0 infrastructure, there's no branches, right? Doesn't cost you anything. I think right now they're on 15 employees, right? About to launch later this year. All of the banking will be done via a mobile application. The biggest banks, our top 4, our top 5 banks, have no counter for this. How can you? 0 bank fees, what's going to pay for our fancy offices and buildings, right? And our bonuses. Bank Zero's figured that way out. Netflix, right? How many of you guys still have a DSTV account? All right, some of you. I don't, right? 1,000 rand a month to pay for reruns, right? I pay $199, I think, for my Netflix, $169. And Netflix, every time I log in, tells me, Mushambi, you would like watching X, right? I don't have to do anything. I don't have to select anything. Right there it pops up, and 9 times out of 10, they're spot on, and I love whatever they're showing me. So if you listen to your consumers well enough, you'll understand that that's their new basics, right? That's why disruption is happening. So every industry in the world, in the next 20 years, if it's not happening right now, Mike Tyson's coming. So you have to understand the very nature of disruption and exponential growth. So how do we know, as I close out, that there's opportunities ripe for disruption, if our industry is ripe for disruption? Firstly is data. If you're not using data to make your decisions, to listen to, you're going to be disrupted. If you're using old technology, if you're still using Excel, right, much less a calculator, you're going to get disrupted, right? That's why we're here talking about QuickBooks. If you haven't changed your business model, if you haven't saved your self-time or your consumers, your customers' time, and redundant intermediaries, right? Recently purchased a house, and I realized that, like, you know what? We didn't need a real estate agent. She didn't know anything about the house or the neighborhood or any of the features. The owner and I liaised perfectly, and we learned so much about the business, the building and the house and the school 2 blocks down the street from my kids. We didn't need that intermediary, right? Accounting is also ripe for disruption, right? The bookkeeping part of your business, the number crunching part of your business will and should be disrupted. You should not spend any more time there, right? It doesn't make sense to do that in 2019, right? As accountants, if I came to you 10 years ago and said, should I invest in Uber or Facebook or Airbnb, most of you would probably tell me that's a bad idea, right? These companies had no assets, right? They didn't have any cars, they didn't have any buildings, they didn't have any hotel rooms, and I had to teach you that we'd stand on a corner and let a random stranger pick us up in a vehicle and take us somewhere, or that you'd open up your home, right, to random strangers and let them have your house for a weekend, right? That didn't make any sense. But all these are billion-dollar companies. Why? Because the number crunching part of your business and what you do wouldn't have predicted this. However, beyond number crunching, what I believe the true definition of your practices are today is that you help us understand the variables for making a vision work. That's what you do, right? That's what you do. You help us take all of that data and tell us, yes, you will have a great year. Yes, you can hire more employees. Yes, you can get a new office. Yes, you can scale your business exponentially. You help us take all that information, all those variables for success, and make them make sense, right? It's much deeper and much valuable than just being a number cruncher, right? Of just doing our books in time, or just saving me a couple of bucks with SARS, right? There's something much more valuable there. So technology's job and your job today is to guide and advise your clientele, right? If we talk about QuickBooks, your job is financial advisory. It's no longer number crunching. So hopefully through the technology that you use on a regular basis, and even the technology that QuickBooks provides you, as I close up now, is I had the fortune of being with QuickBooks in the last couple of the months, interacting with the South African team and even the team in Silicon Valley, and I learned a couple quick things about the software. And firstly is QuickBooks offers simplicity, right? Technology's job is to simplify your life. You can do many more things. You can minimize the amount of clicks it takes to do basic tasks just by using this technology. Lastly, secondly, it saves you time. The more time you have, the more people you can serve, right? You're gonna be ahead of the game from disruption. You're gonna be able to service more clients. That makes more money, more revenue. And lastly is innovation. I love that we have these conversations brought to you like a brand like this. It doesn't happen very much in my circles, that a brand can be willing to talk to people and teach people about innovation. But also to have the commitment. I know QuickBooks, for a fact, has 1,500 developers that look at the software every single day, that keep on improving it and trying to make it better. So as I close today, I'd like you to take the entrepreneurial mindset, right, and put it into your business, even if you're not entrepreneurs, or if you've got the goal to, because that way of thinking will contribute to your success. And don't run away from technology. Just like you use QuickBooks and you're open to using new softwares, is become tech adjacent in your businesses. Build for the next 100 years, not for the next financial year or for the next quarter. Build to sustain your businesses forward. Thank you for your time.